New insight into the mind of one of Arizona's most infamous serial killers, known as the Pied Piper of Tucson. 3 girls disappeared back in the 1960s. They were found dead after the killer confessed. That serial killer had a wife. She never said a word publicly about her husband or his crimes.
For the first time, she is revealing how she fell for a killer and why the mafia may have had a hand in this case. She spoke with our true crime correspondent, Brianna Whitney.
It was described as a very ugly city of rock and chrome.
Tucson, Arizona, 1964.
It was nothing but hamburger joints and billboards, people cruising on the avenues.
One memory deeply ingrained.
Creepy, manipulative, and bright.
But not black and white for those who lived it.
Loyal, loving, and thoughtful.
One two-faced man, 3 girls, gone.
I truly believe that this crime shattered the innocence of Tucson.
A murderer so sinister, yet charming. The dawn of a type of killer just starting to be understood.
It was the first serial killer case in the history of Tucson.
She saw it all, and 60 years later, it's Diane Schmid's story to tell.
I'm the ex-wife of Charles Schmid,
Who's known as?
who is known as the Pied Piper of Tucson.
You have not done media interviews before.
No, I haven't. Never.
Why now?
I have been writing down stuff for probably about 7 or 8 years now. I would have never guessed it turned out like it did.
Just 15 years old, Diane Schmid skipped class, instead sitting at the hamburger stand reading a book. That's when a boy catches her eye.
Next thing I know, he comes over and introduces himself. He tells me he's Charles Schmid, and I tell him my name, Diane, and he said, "Can I join you?"
He went by Smitty, and boy, was Smitty something author Marshall Terrell would discover.
To me, he was an outrageous character.
Small in stature, he'd stuff his cowboy boots with rags for extra height.
The bandage on his nose, the dyed hair, and would sing these Elvis love songs to these women.
And I have no idea what the beauty mark was all about, but it just kept getting bigger.
He said that he knew 100 different ways to make love to women.
In just months, that worked on a young and impressionable teenage Diane. October 1965.
This is our wedding picture, one of them.
She thought this was marital bliss. Then, something a little strange.
And I woke up and he's sitting at the foot of our bed with a butcher knife. And he's saying, "God's gonna punish us. God is gonna punish us for what we've done."
She brushed it off, but just weeks later, an unexpected visit.
There's a knock at the door, and there's 5 detectives standing there. They just showed me a warrant and walked right on past me. They took the phone from Smitty and hung it up and told him he was under arrest for the murder of Gretchen and Wendy Fritz.
1 month before Diane and Smitty's chance encounter, the Fritz sisters disappear. Daughters of a prominent heart doctor in town, Gretchen, 16 years old, in a tumultuous relationship with Charles Schmid, and her little sister Wendy, just 13.
People knew what he did, but they just kept quiet about it.
Smitty's friend confesses what he knows.
He tells his grandmother, and then she in turn encourages him to call Tucson police. And that's how Schmid gets turned in.
And that kind of broke the whole case wide open.
Broke it wide open.
Charles Schmid was charged with another murder too. A year earlier, 15-year-old Aline Rowe had gone missing. His other friends tell police they were there that night and watched Smitty kill the girl he wanted romantically, who wanted nothing to do with him. 3 girls vanished and killed. His trial would become a show in and of itself.
It was a big media affair because Life magazine covered the story. It gave it a 16-page spread.
They dubbed Charles Schmid the Pied Piper of Tucson.
Playboy Los Angeles Times, every major outlet covered it, and some even international.
Charles Schmid decides to come clean about Aline mid-trial, taking detectives to her remains. It's an image Diane Schmid could never shake.
Out in the middle of the desert, digging with his hands. He came up with Aline's skull, holding it in his hands, and it looked like he was admiring it. I couldn't get over the look and the skull.
He wanted to kill Arlene Rowe just for the thrill of it, just to see what it felt like.
Schmid was sentenced to death for the Fritz sisters and 50 years for Aline Rowe. But when the Supreme Court got rid of the death penalty, his sentence changed to life behind bars. Diane believed he would get out on parole, sticking by him even after he had her divorce him, so her name wouldn't be tarnished too.
Had he not asked you to get the divorce to protect you, would you have done it?
I wouldn't have gotten it.
Even after he was a convicted serial killer?
Yes.
Why?
I was just that attracted to him.
He escaped twice, Diane ready to help him flee to Mexico. That never came to fruition.
How was he killed and by who?
We definitely know who killed him. What we don't know is the reason why.
March 1975, 2 inmates take down Charles Schmid.
There are many, many theories as to why he was killed by these 2 men.
Some said these inmates got in a fight with Schmid after they denied a prison break with him. Others said he was saying nice things about the warden and was considered a snitch. But Marshall and Diane believe one theory above the rest.
I think it was a mafia killing. And I think the Fritz father had something to do with it. He was a heart doctor, and he was Joe Bonanno's doctor.
The American mob boss had retired in Tucson not long before.
I'm not saying that Fritz put out the order, but I've talked to 5 individual people who all don't know each other, who all told me the same story, that it was Bonanno put out the hit on them.
The Fritz family tells us while James Fritz was Bonanno's heart surgeon and did have a relationship with him, he had no affiliation with the mob, and they say Schmid was killed after inmates found out what he did to the 3 girls. Marshall has helped Diane process her past by writing a new book together, which means he knows every intimate part of her story.
Do you believe she didn't know anything?
I believe she didn't know anything, and here's the reason why. She was 16 years old. She couldn't possibly comprehend things that he did. There were really 4 victims in this. There were the 3 girls that got murdered, and there's Diane who had to live with all this.
To Diane, it's as if the evil never existed. Trapped in a whirlwind teenage love with rose-colored glasses, she refused to take off. Life moved on, but she never did.
I've been married 5 more times. I never found that love again. If you love somebody unconditionally, you will stand by them.
You think Charles was the love of your life?
Yes.
In Tucson, Brianna Whitney for Arizona's Family.
Diane and Marshall's new book is coming out this Saturday, March 1st. Royal.